Hi, I'm here with Aaron. He's the Vice President of Quality at Sterigenics.
Hi, David.
Hi. Sterigenics is a service-oriented company. It's a private corporation that specializes in sterilizing medical products. So Aaron, tell me what a service-oriented company like Sterigenics, tell me about their inventory.
So a lot of service-oriented companies like ours don't really have a huge inventory supply. In our case, we really only have a couple critical pieces of supplies that would be inventory. We use a gas called ethylene oxide for our chemical sterilization processes and radioactive material called cobalt-60 for our radiation processes. Other than that, we keep extremely limited inventories.
Do you use perpetual or periodic accounting, and why?
Okay, for us, we generally use perpetual, and we're required to for a couple different reasons. One, first off, our enterprise system is made to be able to track our inventories on a work order by work order basis, so we can use that perpetual inventory system. Secondly, from a regulatory perspective, both from an environmental perspective with our hazardous gases, as well as a nuclear safeguarding perspective with our nuclear materials, we have to have a continual knowledge of what the inventories of our materials are.
Now, in terms of recording and valuing your inventory and using cost flow assumptions, do you use LIFO, FIFO, or weighted average?
Alright, so we actually attack this a couple different ways. For the chemical process, where we're using discrete amounts of chemical for each work order, we can use the FIFO process, and in that case there's basically an allotted amount of gas for each work order that we do. We can measure that, and we know exactly what the cost is. We actually bill it that way as well to the customer, where the cost of the gas is passed directly on to the customer. In the case of the radioactive materials, we can't do that because there's not a discrete amount of material for an individual work order. In fact, both the work orders are mixed, as well as the fact that we mix the material. So radioactive material decays over a time period, and we have to weight that decay, which is the source of the lowering of the inventory stock, as well as the main cost basis for it.
All right, now how do you safeguard your inventory, and do you ever experience shrinkage in your inventory?
Alright, so safeguarding the inventory is pretty critical with us because all of our main inventory materials are quite hazardous. In terms of the chemical, it's a toxic chemical. It's also very explosive. It has to be heavily secured. It's always kept in secure areas that are gated, and the areas are also monitored at all times. In terms of shrinkage, we don't really experience any shrinkage of that. Any loss of that particular material would have to be passed on to the authorities, and it would be considered a huge deal. For the radioactive material, it's even more critical not to experience any shrinkage. In fact, the material itself is in such a state that it can't actually be handled by a person without the use of lead caskets that weigh 10 to 20,000 pounds apiece. You'd have to completely shut down the facility to even be able to get at them, and it requires very specialized knowledge. Those facilities are also heavily safeguarded in terms of access control and monitoring.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
you.
you.
It was nice meeting you.